Neetcode 150, daily temperatures. We are in the stack section. The problem goes as follows. You are given an array of integer temperatures, where basically at the index I of the temperature, you're gonna have a value that will represent the temperature at that day. So for example, at day 1, we have temperature of 30. At day 2, we have temperature of 38. At day 3, we're back to 30. At day 4, we have a temperature of 36. And we have to return an array where the array basically is going to be the same length of the array temperatures. And at the index I, basically we're going to have the number of days that it takes um, in order to have a temperature higher than the one at this day. So for example, at the index 0, you can see that we have a 1 in the output array. This is because it takes literally just 1 day. So like the very next day, we get a 38, which is higher than 30. So it actually takes 1 day to have a higher temperature. Um, for the second day at 38, you can see that on the day 3, you have a temperature of 30, which is not higher. On day 4, you have a temperature of 36, which is not higher either. Then you have 35, and then you have 40, okay? So if you count distance or the number of days it will take to have a temperature higher than 40, starting from 38, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is why you have a 4 in the output array for 30, right? So on the third day, you have a temperature of 30. And on the fourth day, so the very next day that we get a 30, we have a 36. So it takes 1 day to have a higher temperature. So I hope you understand the concept. Now we'll show you how we can go ahead and solve this problem using a stack, which will use a time complexity of big O of n and a space complexity of big O of n. This is probably the most efficient problems. You can eventually do this better with dynamic programming, but for the purpose of this exercise, we will keep the data structure stack. So first, we're going to iterate through every temperature, so every day's temperature in our array. And we basically want to also retrieve the index because it's going to be important in determining the length. Okay, so as you can see, we're going to start with our 73. And a first check, which is basically the only check that we're going to have, is the value that we have, so the temperature, higher than the temperature at the top of the stack. Okay. If it is not, we are just going to add temperature to the stack. If it is greater, we are going to have to do some manipulations. You will see later. So let's go ahead and write our 73. Notice that the stack is currently empty, so we are going to append it to the stack. So 73 is at the index 0. Notice that in the stack, you're going to add the temperature and the index of that temperature. Cool. So now we saw 73. We're going to go ahead and check 74. And we're going to have our first if statement here. Okay, so we want to check in our if statement if the temperature that we have is greater than the temperature at the top of the stack, 73. Yes, it is. So in this case, we are going to pop this temperature. And we're going to retrieve the difference between the index of the temperature that we are at and the temperature of the block that we just popped out of the stack. Okay. Oh. All right, and also something that is super important, it's to initiate an output array that is going to be 26 zeros. Not 26, but the amount of zeros that represents the number of days. So if you have 26 days in your arrays, you're going to have 26 output zeros. But in our case, we have 8 days, so we are going to have 8 zeros at first. All right, because one thing that we have to take into account is what if we never get a temperature higher than the day that we are at. In this case, we're going to have to return 0. So we're just going to create a default behavior of 0. All right, cool. And we are going to return um, when we find a temperature that is greater than the temperature at the top of the stack. We're going to return to the index of the block that we just picked out. So here it's going to be at the index 0. We are going to add the difference between this index, so the temperature that is greater than the one at the top of the stack, and we are going to add this difference, which is 1, at the index 0. Okay, so let's go ahead, write this, and once this is done, we are good to go. We can now so we can now append our second temperature to the stack, and we saw 74. So now we go ahead and look at our 70, and we will use our if statement. So is 70 greater than the temperature that is currently at the top of the stack? It is not. So we are simply going to add our 70 at, well, in the stack. All right. Okay, so 70 is done. And now we're going to go see our 71, and we're going to check, is 71 greater than the temperature at the top of the stack? Yes, it is. Index 3. Okay. So yes, it is. So what do we do in this case? We are going to pop out this value, and at the index of the temperature that we just popped out of the stack, so here it is 2, we're going to add the difference between the index of the temperature that is greater than its temperature. So you can see that the difference here is obviously 1. So we have index 3 minus index 2, which is 1. And at the index of this here, we are going to add the difference, so the 1. So at index 2, 0, 1, 2, we are going to add 1. Okay? Great. We are ready to move on. And I'm going to check the 71. Great. So now, next number is 68. And 68 is not greater than the value at the top of the stack. So we are going to add it simply at the top of the stack. All right. And that's it for 68. Now we have 76. And yes, 76 is greater than the value at the top of the stack. So 76 is 5. All right. So what do we do? I think you know the drill at this point. We are going to pop out the top value, and we're going to add at the index of the block that we just popped out. So at the index 4, we are going to add the difference of the index between the index at the value 76, so 5. So 5 minus 4 is 1. Okay, so we're going to add at index 4 the value 1. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. are gonna add one. Okay, and now we are done with our 68. Don't need it anymore. And you can probably see a while loop here. So while the value here 76 is greater than the value at the top of the stack, we are going to pop out that value at the top of the stack. And at the index of that value at the top of the stack, so here it's going to be at the index 3, we're going to add the difference between the index of the new temperature that is greater than its value at the index here. Okay, so 5 minus 3 is 2. All right, so we have 5 minus 3 is equal to 2. And this is going to go to the index 3. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. All right. And then we are going to continue our loop because the value at the top of the stack is now, it is still smaller than the value that we just picked. Okay. So we are going to 50 generate parentheses. You might have noticed, but this problem is actually with. So we are going to add at the index 1 the value between the difference of the index of the biggest temperature 76, so 5, with the index of the value that we just popped out of this stack. So you are going to have basically 5 minus 1, so it's going to be 4, and you're going to place the value 4 at the index of the block that you just popped out. All right, so at index 1 we're going to add 4, and after this we are finally done because our stack is now empty. Okay, so we can finally add our 76 inside the stack. And I will just fast forward the process here because we have 75, which is smaller than the value at the top of the stack. So we are going to add 75 to the stack. And now we're going to get 73, which is smaller itself than 75, which is going to be at this point at the top of the stack. So we are never going to get a greater value than what we get at every single day from 76. So we are going to keep our 3 zeros at the end. So let's go ahead and code this. All right. So the first thing that we want to have, it's basically our array of zeros. So I will call this the output, and it's going to be an array of zeros. And we want to make sure that we have the same amount of zeros as temperatures. So as the length of temperatures. Okay. So this is an important step. After this, we are going to create our stack. It's going to be an empty array. And now we're going to create our for loop, but we're going to have to use the enumerate method because we also want to extract the index of each temperature. So I stands for the index and T stands for the temperature. So for the index and the temperature in enumerate temperatures, okay, now we're going to create our while loop, which is the sole condition. So while basically there is a stack, so if there's nothing in the stack, we are just going to add the temperature and its index to it. So while stack and also the temperature that we retrieve is greater than the temperature at the top of the stack. So we're just going to take the first index. We're actually going to take the last index of the stack, and within that last index, because remember there are 2 values per index, we're going to take the first index, which is going to represent the temperature. So while this is true, we are going to pop the, the stack to get the latest value. And we will want to store basically the temperature of that that top block on the stack and also its index. So we're gonna call we're gonna say stack t and also stack index. Okay, so these are gonna be equal to stack.pop, and this is enough to store the temperature and the index of the top block of the stack. All right, and now in our output, um, at the index of what we just retrieved, so at the index of the top temperature of the stack, what are we going to do? We're going to say that uh, the value, it's basically going to be the index of the temperature that we are at minus its index. Okay, hope it makes sense. So this is basically the entire logic that we follow through the example at first. After this, remember, we're going to want to append to our stack the temperature first and the index in this order. And after this, we can return the output. All right. So we have an error here because we did not indent our solution. And there you go. So this is how you solve the problem 25 of Neetcode 150, daily temperature. I hope you learned from this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.